Hebrews chapter 11 declares that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Oh, if today you feel hopeless and are bound in despair, just hold on till tomorrow. God will be right there. So many problems, they are getting you down. Please don't let them make you wear a frown. You just hold your head up high, lift your eyes to the sky. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy's coming in the morning light. You just, oh yeah, don't you give up. You got to make it.
Thought I was fine the way I was. Thought I had life in the palm of my hand. I was riding well, living well. I thought I had it made in the shade. But out of nowhere I had a setback, oh, life attack. And before I knew it, I was a candidate for being remade. Lord, make me over. Make me over. I wanna be remade. I thought I could shine on my own. I thought I had the world under my spell. But all I had was fake friends, no one to be there to the end. Out of nowhere I saw my life burn, sitting like ashes in the bottom of an urn. And before I knew it, I was a candidate for being remade. So make me over, make me over, make me over, make me over. Lord, make me over, make me over. I wanna be remade.
Let me take you back to the beginning. My definition of winning involved a lot of sinning. Look at the devil grinning, his love was so fake. But God told me you will not be defined by your mistakes. Never too late, thinking straight now. I done found my way now. So we don't say that God is good, we say God is great now. The devil hate now, so I be facing tests on the daily. But the way New Orleans and raised me, I'm saved, but I ain't scary. Don't expect God's resistance, respect God's existence. He's trying to talk to you, so don't neglect God's persistence. When it's all over, whatever impact D made, just know it wouldn't have been possible if I wasn't remade.
Came into my life since Jesus came into my heart.
Yeah, and I know
what a change came into my life.
Yeah, and I know
since Jesus came into my heart. Oh, what a change!
What a change came into my life.
your love got me living.
Since Jesus
came into my
came
heart.
into my heart.
Oh, what a change!
Oh, what a change
And I know
into my life.
Since I met you, Jesus
Since Jesus
came into my
came
heart.
into my heart.
So Lord,
Make me over, make me over, make me over, make me over, Lord, make me over, make me over.
I wanna be
What a change
came into my life.
came into my life.
Since Jesus
and I know
Since Jesus
came into my
came into
heart.
my heart.
Say, oh, what
and I
Oh,
know
what a change
I've been
came
remade.
into my life.
since I met you, Jesus
Since Jesus
came into my
came
heart.
into my heart.
Oh, make me over, make me over. gonna be remade.
He gives me sunshine. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He gives me sunshine. On a cloudy day, he gives me sunshine. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He gives me sunshine. On a
Okay. I'm on my phone.
Welcome
What are y'all
to
using?
the
Are y'all
first
like using
installment
iPads and all that kind of stuff?
of my new talk show, Private Conversations with Pastor. It's a delight to have all of you tuning in tonight and coming into the room. I want you to take a moment to share, to like, and to invite somebody else in. Take a moment to share, to invite, and to like, to tell somebody else to come in and be a part of what's getting ready to happen tonight. The Lord impressed upon me that we are in a season where we can either make an impact or become irrelevant. I'm going to say that one more time. Either make an impact or become irrelevant. So this show has been birthed out of love, and this show has been birthed out of need. Today we are living a new normal. A new normal has come upon us because of COVID-19. Our agendas have been abruptly interrupted. Honestly, life as we know it has been hijacked. However, Scripture teaches that God is omniscient, meaning that he knows everything. So we are confident that he had plans for us before coronavirus, and he still has plans for us right now. So in the midst of all of this, there is a dire need in many churches to understand and accept what God and who God has called me to talk to through this show, and that is a generation of millennials. Until now, some churches, not all, have struggled with what is the millennial population and what is the proper place in the church for millennials. All of you who were born between 1981 and 1996 are considered to be millennials. So that means if you are 24 years of age to 39 years of age tonight and you're listening to me, you are considered to be a millennial. So I'm speaking to you tonight and to everybody who is tuning in. And we're going to do this now each Friday night. We're called to do this each Friday night. We're calling you together. So I want you to go to our YouTube page. I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Pastor Dale Sanders. And I want you to follow me on Facebook. Now, it is said that there are more than 71 million millennials in the world today. Millennials are swiftly outrunning baby boomers. Millennials are here in large numbers. And so the issue is for the church and many other organizations is that, one, millennials speak their own language. You've constructed your own society within a society. You march to the beat of your own drum. You have champagne taste, sometimes it's said, on a beer budget. And you're highly educated and highly opinionated at the same time. So the question comes, how does the church successfully engage what I'm calling tonight a prototype? How does the church successfully engage a prototype? You know what a prototype is. It's a new concept that has yet to be tested, but is quite appealing to everybody. Webster says a first full-scale and usually functional form of a new type or design of a construction. You see, the case in point immediately, let me say it like this, is I just said Webster says. Now, Webster says might be okay for those of us who are of a certain age, but for those of you who are millennials, you may be asking, some of you, who is Webster? Because though we were raised on the Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary, you have not necessarily been raised on the dictionary. You've been raised on Google. So when you get ready to find something out, you Google it. You get ready to find something out, you go to the internet. But tonight, we want to talk to you because the truth is, the church admires you, but the church has not always known how to handle you. And so tonight, we're going to talk about this. We know you're savvy. We know you have strength and your youth. You're technologically intuitive. You're creative. You have style. And you have independence. But we need to take all of that and link it up for the betterment of the gospel and of the kingdom of God. You are what the church needs, but you are so different from our former selves that at times you frighten the church, and sometimes to the point of spiritual paralysis. So this is what we're going to do tonight. Tonight, because it is becoming increasingly clear that God may be using this crisis, this coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic. God may very well be using this crisis to do something in the church, and that is to place the church in the hands of millennials. So the question is, what are you going to do with her? If God uses this crisis to place the church in your hands, what in the world are you going to do with her? Listen, I have two guests tonight who are going to come and be a part of what God is doing, and I'm going to invite them into the room. I sure hope y'all are inviting. I hope you are liking. I hope you are sharing. I want you to host watch parties. We're going to have a party tonight here on Facebook and on YouTube, and I'm excited about it. My first guest that I'm going to bring into the room is a young man who is crisscrossing the nation, preaching the gospel, singing, just gifted at all levels. God is using him in a mighty, mighty way. He's in Los Angeles, California, and he is the pastor of the Mount Moriah Church. And y'all know him. His name is John Terrence Tate. Come on in, Pastor Tate. It's good to see you tonight. And we're excited that you're sharing with us on this inaugural program. And it is Private Conversations with Pastor. Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir, Pastor Sanders. It's a blessing, man, that you would have this this show tonight for us. And we'll appreciate you for having the vision to help us millennials out.
Well, look, all of us millennials.
Right.
Listen,
right.
I'm also excited tonight that Pastor Tate is not the only pastor with me tonight, but my friend and brother all the way from Chi-Town, Chicago, Illinois. The Fellowship Church is on the air with us tonight, Pastor Reginald Wayne Sharp Jr. Man, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing well. I hope everybody is wonderful. It's good to be on here with all these millennials, including yourself. We are honored to have you as an honorary member of our group and society.
Well, look, I'm excited that that the three of us are on. I want to thank you all first for your friendship, and thank you for agreeing. I know that we are so busy right now, we can't decide what to do. We got so much going on.
So much.
But listen, I'm excited that you all have decided to come into the room tonight. This is what I want to do. I want us to have a conversation tonight about the millennials in America, in the world, what God is doing, what God can do through millennials, this age group of 23 to 39, those who were born in 1981 all the way to 1996. It's another. They are living in another world within our world, And
Correct.
I want to first say that both of these pastors that are on tonight are in the millennial group. So now listen, brothers, I missed the millennial boat by 11 years. I was born in 1970. I just turned 50 in February of this year. Somebody ought to say something.
Yeah, Rick, you missed
Congratulations.
it there. You missed
Thank
it. You
y'all.
missed it, Rick.
And I just want to pass this by you to see what you all think about it. I believe the church needs gray hair and Gucci. I believe the church needs dentures and divas. I believe the church ought to have canes and Corvettes, Social Security checks and six-figure incomes. I believe every church ought to have some grandmas and some grandchildren. So let me ask you, what's y'all's take on this? How do you all feel about the mixing of the generations and the church being a smorgasbord of people and a cadre, an array of people, not just millennials, not just an elderly church, but what's your take on that?
Pastor
Pastor Tate.
Sharp.
Oh, look at us calling each other. Well, I'll jump in and say I really think that there is a richness to having a church with multiple generations. I'm grateful that both churches I've served, House of Hope Macon in Georgia and Fellowship Chicago, were multi-generational churches. So we had 90-year-olds and 80-year-olds and 6-month-old babies. And so I found a richness in that because biblically speaking, on the day of Pentecost, a part of the movement of the Spirit was that it was your old men and women having dreams and your young men and young women are seeing visions. And when I looked at that and I was trying to figure out, now what's the difference of the old people having dreams and the young people having visions? My research let me know that dreams and visions were poetic language and they were the same thing. So basically, the older people and the younger people are able to do the same things. And we need the wisdom and we need the energy from both groups, because when you put that together, something rich and something powerful happens. So I'm down with having multiple generations.
All right, Pastor Tate.
Let me say this. I do agree with Pastor Sharp, coming from Memphis and LA. Very similar ministries, having all of them. I'm in for it all. And I think that we just have to be that bridge. And I think the Lord has blessed me and Pastor Sharp to be a bridge for each generation, because we could give you old school, we could give you new school. So I totally in agreement with that. I love it. I love it. The multi-generation. I love to have all ages.
Okay, so tell me something. How do you bring a happy medium in your church, in the churches that you serve, as it relates to the elderly generation and the younger generation without friction?
Well, I don't think you do anything in ministry without some friction. Wherever there's motion, there's friction. So I would say that we have to learn, and I've had to learn, Pastor Dale, in my few years of pastoring, that I've had to learn to embrace the chaos and embrace the friction. The world was formed out of chaos. So if God could create the world from chaos, what can God create in our churches when we go through seasons of friction and misunderstanding?
Wow.
So I've just had to embrace it. But the blessing is I don't have that experience where the older people are upset and the young people are bored and all of that. It's like, we make time every Sunday for everybody to be touched intentionally. We have some youth Sundays. We've had some Sundays where the millennials lead and kind of take over. So I'm really blessed in that regard, that I don't see the friction. I think people appreciate the beauty if the pastor appreciates the beauty. And you have to teach what it means for a hymn to be sung, and also what it means for the youth to come out doing a stomp or doing rap in the middle of one of their selections. and just show the beauty of it and show how God is moving, even though it may not be your taste, it's still presenting some level of truth.
Okay, we have some, I feel you. We have some millennials who feel like the church may be outdated for them. We have some millennials who feel like they have grown beyond the church, and that the church does no longer have anything to offer them that is of any substance. How do we address, Pastor Tate, a millennial generation where many of our millennials believe that they have either been educated beyond the church, they feel like they have grown beyond the church. Mom and daddy took me to church, but I don't want to do that anymore. This busy lifestyle, you know, I've got a lot to do. I got a lot on my plate, and church is a bit much for me right now.
I think it depicts a picture of where God stands in your life. When you have a true relationship with Jesus Christ, I mean, me and Pastor Sharp, yourself, we are church boys. We've been in church our entire life. We love church. I think even if we wasn't called to be pastors and preachers, we'll still go to church because we have a relationship with God. Our mother, our father, grandmother, granddad, whoever brought you to church, you develop a relationship with Jesus Christ through them. But it comes a place in your life that you have to get to know him for yourself. And I think with all of this that goes on in our life, we don't create a real, genuine relationship with God, and we get lost in all of this and say, oh, I don't need the church like I used to. You know, now I can watch the church online. Instead of being in corporate worship, I could just watch it online, fit it into my schedule. And I think the hindrance of that is that we have to know that's where people are, but we have to also understand that God deserves our time. You know, with the old church, they're gonna come to church regardless. They don't want to miss church. They want to be there. But as a young pastor, we have to understand the millennials are going to be, you know, I'm busy now. I got this going on. I got families. And then what hinders us too is, you know, when you were coming up, Pastor Sanders, y'all didn't have activities on Sunday. Sunday was set for church.
Right.
Now on Sunday, they got baseball games, football games, you know, all of this. So it pulls them from church. It pulls them from the unit of what, you know, that they're used to, what we used to do. And so I think as being a young pastor, I would love for all millennials to be in church, but I understand they're not going to do that, you know. And so wherever the disconnect was, I think that's why we're on here tonight, to try to figure out where is the disconnect so we can connect it, so we can have that, what we used to have.
Okay, Pastor Sharp and Pastor Tate, let me ask you this. Both of you all have great social media followings, correct?
Right.
Well, now, that being said,
Sharp does.
The question is, how do we engage a lot of those young folk who only want to come to Facebook church, who only want to come to Instagram church, who only want to come to YouTube church, even though we appreciate and we engage them and we thank God for them, but we also know what the scripture says, that we should not forsake the assembling of ourselves together. as the manner of some are. So we want you to tune in if you have to by Facebook, by Instagram, by YouTube. But we also want you to be a part of the worship because the power is in the worship and the connectivity and rubbing shoulders with the saints. How do we address a generation who feels I can get church on the go?
Well, I think that we have to look at the time we're in right now.
Uh-huh.
Everybody's having church on the go. Everybody's online.
Uh-huh.
Everybody's YouTubing and Facebooking and Instagramming and church websiting.
Correct.
And I think there's some beauty to that. I was the guy that have stated from the pulpit. I have stated from the pulpit on multiple occasions that you can't forsake the assembly of the brothers and the sisters, and you need to be in church.
Mm-hmm.
Truth is,
You went out, Pastor.
you all
Pastor, for some reason we're having a problem hearing you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you now.
All right. I apologize. So a phone call came through. That's the thing with technology. So what I was saying was I had to repent because I think, and all that means right, turn and go a different way, because there is power in virtually fellowshipping together. There's power in
Correct.
virtually joining together, and it's okay to embrace something new. The key word, if we're going to reach millennials, everybody has to learn this one word, and that is pivot. We all have to pivot.
All right.
Any leader that gets stuck in one way, when it comes time to bend, you're gonna break instead of bending with the times. And so we have to pivot. And then number two, people do have relationships with God, and some of them see that the relationship is larger than a church building or just one denomination or even one religion.
Right.
So people are finding God in different ways. And what we have to do as a church is not bash them, but create a space for conversation
Yeah.
instead of participating in crucifixions. Because a lot of times when people come a different way, we try to kill them instead of listening to them. And millennials are going to think how they think. And we have to be open for conversations.
Okay, so let me ask you this. A lot has been said about the church not meeting the need of this generation. And many say that the church has missed the boat altogether. What say you? Is it the church that has missed the millennial, or is it the millennial that's missing the church?
I think it's both.
All right. Pastor Shaw?
Pastor Shaw, what do you think?
I think every church has to reimagine what it means to serve that generation.
True.
And so I think that some of us are just unwilling to serve this current generation. It's not just millennials. We have a whole generation coming up behind the millennials who on a whole nother frequency. We don't even talk about, Generation Z. I don't know what their names are, to be honest with you. I think it's Z.
Yeah.
And so we got to prepare for them. We have to create and reimagine. So I just think the key word is pivot, and the church is not really, too many churches are not willing to pivot.
Okay.
And so the church is missing the millennials, and I would say the other side too, but not as much.
Okay, Pastor Sharp, you used the word pivot. To what extent should the church pivot to meet the need of the millennials?
I think it's imperative to make sure they're heard, and we
Gotcha.
can't say enough about that. Make sure they're heard. Don't get stuck in tradition. Focus on transformation. If something needs to change, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Our services are way too long.
Certainly.
People are able to go to YouTube or pull up their phone and get a question answered in a matter of 10 seconds or less, and most times quicker than that. And you want us to sit through 2 hours of a worship service when the truth is, it's like, Doc. And so everybody on this call, Pastor Sanders, Pastor Tate, and myself, we love Black preaching. When we preach, you got to tell the story. Start slow, aim high, strike fire, sit. It's the same thing.
It's same.
But we are preaching in a day, and I know, but we're preaching in a time where people's attention spans are so much shorter. So even on social media now, we have cut out all the fat. You're going to get one worship song at the top. I'm up preaching, and we might put some announcements at the end. And people are like, can we do this when we get back to church?
That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying all day long. That's what they're saying all day.
Yeah.
That I'm sitting at my phone, my computer, and you mean to tell me I've experienced this in this short amount of time? Preacher, when I come back, don't be trying to hold me. Don't try to hold me, because I've experienced this through the phone or through my computer in a short amount of time.
Well, one writer says it like this: we got to date the method and marry the message.
True. True.
We got to date the method and marry the message. In other words, methods can change.
Yes.
Traditions have to change. Some things we have to hold on to, but other things we have to let go of.
Right.
And I'm a church boy, like you said, John Terrace. I hope you find no disrespect in me calling you by your first name. I'm a church boy. I started preaching at the age of 12. Yesterday was my 38th preaching anniversary.
Wow.
April the 16th, 1982, I preached my first sermon on a Friday night. Now I'm 50 years old. 38 years later, I'm a church boy. I love church. I love to attend church. I love to do church, but I understand seasons change. So you don't wear a t-shirt in the winter and a coat in the summer, because seasons change. And when seasons change, we have to, as Pastor Sharp said, pivot and make some changes, even with the worship experience. And we have to convince our people we can still give God our all and give God our best.
You know what, Pastor? I agree wholeheartedly that, it's nothing wrong with us loving church. And I think it's great. But can I tell you, we're searching for something new. And the truth is, I think the answer to what we're looking for is really in our past.
Gotcha.
The Black church was founded as a response to social injustice, whether that's slavery, whether that's civil rights movement. So if we have a church that is not responding to the real issues going on in the streets, going on in the culture, going on with this Trump presidency, if we have a church that's not responding to the real needs of Black people in this COVID-19 pandemic, then the young people are like, what are you saying? And so we're looking for something new, and really we need to be grabbing something old, saying we're going to be the people that we were when we started. And I notice churches that are doing that are still relevant, and folks are flocking to the church because it ain't just about shouting, worship, and Sunday morning, but it's about Monday through Saturday service and activism.
That's true.
Okay, look, pastors, we have a couple of other guests that I need to bring into this conversation. The first guest that we're going to talk with tonight, a non-pastor, but a part of the church, a millennial, raised in church. Her name is Monica Arsenault. She's an attorney here in the city of New Orleans. She has she works for the clerk of Judge Rachel Johnson, Civil District Court in New Orleans. And I want to bring her into this conversation as a professional millennial. And let's have this discussion, and not just amongst ourselves, but with someone else who is a part of the church and may see things the way we see them or may not. So let's bring Monica Arsenault in right now. Hello, Monica, are you here?
Hey, Pastor Sanders. Yes, I am here. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Great. Pastor Sharp and Pastor Tate are here with us, and we're having this conversation. I know you've been listening.
Yes.
concerning millennials and the church, and what is the church's responsibility to millennials? What is the
Right.
millennial responsibility to the church? And I want to ask you a question tonight, and of course our pastors can chime in. One question I have is, are millennials too busy for God in the church right now?
Pastor, I don't think that millennials are too busy. I think we're distracted. And as Pastor Sharp spoke on a little bit, we have a very short attention span right now. It was reported that the average song length on the Billboard Top 100 is 20 seconds shorter than it used to be 5 years ago. And that spoke volumes to me because whereas they say that it's because the artists are adapting to the consumers and how they're streaming music, but we can get everything so quickly, and because of that, things have gotten shorter, commercials have gotten shorter, movies have gotten shorter because we don't have the attention span. I know when I'm scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, if I see a video 9-10 minutes long, I'm like, ooh, is it something I really want to watch, or is it, we're into these sound bites and these 45-second clips and these 50-second clips, and I think that it's not the fact that we're too busy, but I think we're distracted, and I think it might not be exciting enough for us. We're not as invested in it, and because of that, we can't. The church can sometimes be so stuck in its ways that it doesn't want to change. And the Bible said, if the Lord said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men. It doesn't matter how I'm lifted up. Just lift me up and I'll do the rest. I'll draw all men. So I think that's something to really think about, because if you can have a service on Sunday on Facebook or Instagram, and in an hour and 15 minutes, you done preached the word, I done gotten my word and gotten fed, and the Spirit has came and moved in this place. It's very hard for a millennial who is distracted, not excited, bored, maybe feel outdated, to sit there for 2 hours and be invested in something like that.
Okay, pastors, let me ask a question for Monica and you all. The question I have from listening to what you all are saying, in your estimation, is the modern church, the church of the 21st century, more prepared and geared for who's leaving or who's coming?
When you say who's leaving, what do you mean?
Well, the church is like the world.
Yeah,
we're dying off every day.
Wow.
We're walking. We're getting out of here every day. So is our church for folks we've already laid to rest? Or are we building ministries for those who are yet with us?
Wow. Great question. Once again, I mean, I can come on now. You know you want to say something. Come on.
Listen, I'm sitting here just taking all of this.
He's not there? Okay. Well, let me go ahead. Well, okay. So I think that in too many of our churches, we are just prepared for who's leaving. We're just prepared for those who like it the way it is. And I think at the best of our churches, the best of our churches, and I'm particularly talking about the Black church, I think there's something for both. We are preparing people in every generation who are headed home and who are still young enough and able to buy some new homes. I think we ought to have, I think it ought to be both and. It's not an either or. We need ministry for every phase of life, because what my grandmother needs at this age in her 80s is not what I need in my late 20s, and vice versa. So the church has to be sensitive enough for everybody, including the children who we rarely talk about.
Correct. Okay, so we're dealing with a church that has a responsibility and an obligation to do what the church has always found a way to successfully accomplish. and that is to meet the needs of more than one generation at a time.
Right.
I have pastored now for the past 25 years a church that I entered into in December of 1995. That is now, was then, and is now, and both of you have been to our church, a multi-generational church.
Right.
So we have grandmothers, great grandmothers, we have grandchildren, children, and thanks be to God, we have been able to sort of bridge that gap. Of course, I'm always looking for new ways to do it stronger, to do it better, and believe God for higher heights. But what do we say to pastors? And Monica can weigh in on this also. What do we say to pastors who are struggling to define their ministries and are not able to reach beyond the break and grab into the net a multi-generational audience?
Yeah.
Could it be? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. I think part of the issue is the willingness to address issues that at least millennials I've observed and I've had relationships with and have had conversations with address the issues that are pertinent to us. And so, the church, I grew up in the church, has been in the church since I was born. And a lot of times we don't hear the topics that are that directly affect us. So when we talk about, even hard issues, and we're children of education. Most of us come from baby boomers, and we've been in education. Higher education has been instilled and promoted within us, and with that comes questions. With that comes challenges. We want to challenge everything. We want to question everything, and a lot of times the church isn't willing to answer those questions. So when I talk about issues, I'm talking about like sexual assault, feminism, sexism, patriarchy, social activism, financial freedom, financial awareness, economic downfall. All of that stuff is that it directly affects us. And, if we can't get it from the church, we're going to get it from somewhere, because we grew up under the mindset of you're going to get your education. So now that we have these education, subsequently we become lackluster Christians. But I think it's because we can't get those answers and we can't address those issues because the church isn't always willing to diversify its approach or its subject matter.
Yeah, that's so insightful.
Right. That's true. That's true. I think the church, Pastor Sanders, is like the world. Corona has bothered the world, and the word change has bothered the church.
I got you.
The world is fearful of the corona, and the church is fearful of change.
Yeah.
And change is the only constant in the world.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The church fears change because we see change, I believe, as our enemy.
Right.
When really change becomes our friend, because change permits us to roll with life's design. Life is not designed to be the same always.
Right.
That's right.
It just, I said it a minute ago, seasons change. And because life is seasonal, and the Bible teaches us that life is seasonal. Man, I don't.
Can I add something? Oh, sorry.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Doc. Go ahead. No, you in the road then.
No. Go ahead.
The only thing I was going to add was I think that to Monica's point, the subject matter that the church provides it's not relevant. It's not relevant. And it's not about even giving answers to everything, but do we even create the space for people
Right.
to ask the question?
To
Yeah.
feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people out here wrestling with sexuality and all these type of hot topics that you can see on every other news
Right.
station addressing. BET's addressing it, MTV, YouTube channels are addressing it, and you come to the church and we just stuck. And it's not that we're asking anybody to change some of our
Right.
doctrines or our
Right.
beliefs, but are you open to the conversation?
That's right.
And I don't think most people are even open to have some of the tough conversations. And here's one last thing, because you specifically asked, what would you tell pastors to do? This is what I would tell pastors to do. Stop comparing your ministry to other people on social media.
Mm.
Too many of us are caught up with the I don't know what it's called, the disease of comparison. And it's like, if
Mhm.
you don't stay focused on where God planted you, because in your context, you may not even have millennials, but you know what? You better have the strongest senior ministry of any church in your city if that's who you have.
Yeah.
Correct.
Stop. If we're looking at what this church is doing, their camera, or how many followers they have. Forget the followers. Jesus took 12, and the Bible says he turned the world upside down. So if we got 12 left, you got a mega ministry.
Well,
Right.
the bottom line of what you're saying is that you got to run your own race in your own lane.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying.
Because if you look at what each of us are dealing with now, we're all at ground level. We're all at
Yes.
ground level. Ain't no more, hey, Doc, how many showing up to your church? None. None. So we're all at ground level.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I don't have. It's amazing. Pastor Sharp pastors Fellowship. I pastor Mount Moriah. Now, little history. My founder and his founder were best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Reverend Pleasant and Dr. Evans were best friends.
Yes, sir.
Chicago, LA. They both ran each other revivals. They both were just into music and all of that. But they knew their area. They knew what they could do for their town, for their people.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I can't try to be Fellowship. I got to be Mount Moriah.
Yeah.
Because whatever legacy they built, we have to continue that and grow
Well-
upon that. And I think so many guys watching this church and watching that church, and when you watch too many people, you get lost and you lose your own identity because you're trying to be somebody else or be something that you don't even come close to.
Mm-hmm.
well, you become spiritually schizophrenic,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and you're trying. You can glean from people without becoming a person.
Right.
Yeah.
Pastor Sharp said it a second ago. We're playing the comparison game, but that comparison game takes you into the competition game.
Mm.
True.
And we are not here to compete with each other. We are here to complement each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
true.
God gives me a ministry, and He's put something in Dale Sanders that He has not deposited into Reginald Sharp.
That's right.
Yes.
He has placed something in a John Terry Tate, so I have to glean from you. I can't get upset because of what God is doing with the ministry of John Terry Tate or what God is doing with the ministry of Reginald Sharp. I have to do what we're doing tonight. We have to glean from one another.
Well, you know what, Doc? Here's what's funny. I still hoop, and I'm 29. Now that may not sound funny, but it absolutely is funny, because in this culture, that's becoming a dying art, and it is an art form out of the Black religious tradition.
Certainly.
And so I'm still hooping, but here's the key: I'm not playing. I'm being authentic to who I am.
Correct.
Right.
And millennials and people will pick up some authenticity, and they know when we're playing.
Yeah.
They know when it's not real. So we have some people out here, 60 years old, walking into the pulpit with a jogging suit on and a hat turned backwards. And it's like, bruh, you ain't got our sus. You don't have to do that. Be you. You go up there with your 3-piece suit on and be yourself. I have seen older pastors who are still relevant. Dr. Jeremiah Wright, I want to hear him right now. because
Yeah.
he's authentic and he's himself. Dr. Edward Branch, Dr. Teresa Fry Brown, these are people who are older, but they're
Well,
themselves.
look, Pastor, let me, we got to thank you, Monica Arsenault, for being with us
Thank
on
you.
tonight. Listen, I got another young man I want to get in the room based just on what you just said. I've got another young man, I told you, who's a part of our city. He's a worship leader in our city. As a matter of fact, he's a worship pastor in our city. His name is Vernon Bird Jr. He's a product of the church that I pastor, one of the oldest churches in this city, Fifth African Baptist Church, uptown New Orleans. But he is the worship pastor at Beacon Light International Cathedral currently. And so I want to bring Vernon Bird into the room because I know he's been listening. And I want him to chime in on what's going on. Come on in, Vernon. Are you here?
Yes, sir. Thank you,
All
Pastor,
right.
for having me.
Look, it's
Good
good
evening
to
to
have
all of
you.
y'all.
I want you to hit the
Yes,
ground
indeed.
running. Talk to us.
I mean, it's just stirring up so much in me as we talk about really this how we merge this older generation and this younger generation. One of the things that stuck out to me that I've just kind of been pondering and thought as y'all are talking is what both of these generations and these age groups kind of represent. We have this older generation that represents for us wisdom, right? They have the experience. They know, we don't have to figure out if the stove is hot because they didn't already told us, hey, I already touched it. The stove is hot. But then we have this younger generation that represents strength, that has, the strength to kind of propel it forward and to move it forward. So I think something real beautiful happens when we merge together both the wisdom of the older generation and the strength of this new generation. And when we can kind of put that wisdom together with that strength, I think then, then we can really move it forward.
All right. So what do you see, Vernon, with, let's talk about the millennials and the music ministry today with the church. And what do you see is going on? What kind of changes musically is taking place with the church and millennials, and what do we need to adjust ourselves for? What do we need to allot for that we may not be used to?
Yeah. And I think it really depends on the dynamic of the individual ministry and the individual church. For instance, I can speak to what we're doing here at Beacon Light. We, again, have a multi-generational ministry where we've got church mothers, but we've also got young people. We got college students.
Mm-hmm.
So we cater to the best of our ability to a different group. So on first Sundays, our worship may be extremely charismatic, something extremely new, something, real that kind of pushes the envelope. But on second Sunday, when we have communion, our choir singing, we're going to sing a hymn. We're going to kind of, reach back into the arsenal and pull something. So I think what we have to do is both generations have to be willing to understand the other. So the younger generation, I think there's beauty in us knowing and understanding the hymns of the church. I grew up, in Fifth African, so we grew up singing hymns and knowing all the verses to all the hymns. But then there's also a beauty when the older generation can see how this younger generation has a revelation of who God is and expresses it in their own way. My argument is all the time, he spoke to Thomas Dorsey is the same way he spoke to Kirk Franklin. I believe the same God that spoke to those, individuals who wrote those hymns is the same God who's speaking to Todd Delaney now, and who's speaking to Tasha Cobbs now, and who's speaking to all these people who are writing this music now. And the word instructs us. He says, sing unto the Lord a new song. And if we get to the point where we're no longer singing a new song, then I think we kind of off even with scripture. The old song does something for us. It gathers us. It's familiar. We all know Amazing Grace. So when we sing Amazing Grace, it's going to gather us together. but the new song, it propels us and it takes us to where God is going. And as the Bible kind of likens, even for the children of Israel, it likens his spirit to a cloud by day and a fire by night. And so if we kind of just stagnant, if we kind of just, doing the same thing, 9 times out of 10, we in the wilderness and we're not progressing.
So basically, Vernon, what you're
forward.
saying
So-
is, even with worship leading,
Yes.
with leading the worship, you're saying that we need to know Amazing Grace and Stomp.
Yes. Yes.
We need to be able to bring to worship a cadre of music that glorifies God and inspires the worshiper.
It, without a doubt. And the most important part of this, and I think it's been echoed throughout, it has to make sense for your house. If it doesn't make sense for your house, then it's going to be like what Pastor Sharp talked about. You're going to look out of place. If you got a congregation full of people who are 60 plus, and that's who the Lord has given you, and now y'all trying to sing this new stuff with these beats, and your drummer's 60 years old, and he can't keep up with the groove of the song, it matches. So there's some things would do at Fifth African that I wouldn't do at another church that the Lord graces me to, just kind of stand on the platform, just because it doesn't fit for that house. And so that's when I think we got to allow Holy Spirit to really show us and give us what's supposed to be happening in our particular houses. Yeah.
Okay. Well, talk for a minute,
Mhm.
as Pastor Sharp did and as Pastor Tate has done.
Yes.
Talk to a young worship leader. Talk to a young worship leader who has been hired by a church that is not a young church. And they are despondent because they're trying to sing all the top 10 on Sunday morning. They're trying to make folk run and lift their hands and wave and clap when they tell them and do. Talk to that young worship leader about diversifying, diversity, and allowing God to build their ministry.
Yes.
By not being one-dimensional.
Yeah. If all you got is if you playing baseball, you're a pitcher, and all you got is a curveball, or all you have is a fastball, then you're not effective. Now, 9 times out of 10, that young person has probably been hired or placed in that position because maybe the pastor has a desire to move the ministry forward, or kind of cultivate, change up, switch up the sound, the dynamic, diversify it, if you will. And I think some of the frustration that we face is we have, when God gives us a vision, he kind of gives us the end goal. We kind of see this end goal. We see what it can be. We see what we want it to be. We see what we want to ultimately develop. But what happens is there's this place in between where we start and where we end. Ski will turn a whole lot faster than an ocean liner. And when you have a ministry or a church that's been doing something a certain way for a long time, you're not going to really turn that thing as fast as you can see it in your mind. So what has to happen is maybe once a month you introduce in a new song, or then it can kind of maybe over the course of 6 months or a year, then you start introducing more and more new music, till over time, now what you've seen is a culture shift. I can speak from my own experience. When I got here to Beacon Light 12 years ago, the Lord kind of showed me that we should really merge what's happening in the Black church with what's happening, with our other brothers and sisters in this more contemporary Christian age. And so I wanted to introduce all these songs with all these words, and we want to sing all the verses to open eyes in my heart. And the world is this? Why so many words? Why do it sound like lullabies? What's happening? And so I said, okay, we kind of got to find the balance. So I would throw in one of those CCM songs one Sunday, but I put it with Judith McAllister, or I'll put it with William Murphy. I'll put it with something that was familiar and a little bit more palatable until over time we were able to shift the culture of the ministry. And now the people just kind of embrace, accept, and respond to it all.
Look, y'all, I'm having a lot of fun tonight talking to you all. And I want to say thank you. Our time is coming short. But I want to say thank you to Vernon Bird Jr. I want to say thank you to Monica Arsenault and to both of our pastors, Pastor Reginald Sharp and to Pastor Tate, because I think we've had a really insightful discussion tonight. I want to say this in preparing to close. We got to do this again and take this conversation even further, because I believe it's a blessing to the people. I believe it's the past that has helped to provide our present privileges. I'm going to say that again. I believe it's the past that helped to provide our present privileges. Now, that being said, I have a strong affinity for those things from yesterday that God used to propel us to this place. And I'm thankful for where we are. I also have a strong affinity for young people and for millennials and what God is doing in this Generation Z that is now coming up. So I thank God for all generations, and I cannot be a pastor, a leader, and not want to see the success of all generations and see God bring us together and make a stronger church. We are stronger together.
Right.
And so we thank God for what's happening at Fellowship in Chicago. We thank God for what's taking place now at Mount Moriah in Los Angeles. I thank God for what he's doing through our churches in New Orleans and Metairie. And listen, brothers, I want us to pray tonight as we get ready to leave the air for pastors everywhere.
Yeah.
I want us to pray for churches. I want us to pray for millennials, some who think there is no place for them in the church, some who are in the church, but they can't really find what they feel is their niche and what God is calling them to. The word of God is very clear that God has all of us on his mind.
Right.
He says, you know, first of all, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prosper. Then he tells us over in Jeremiah, he says, look, I got plans for you.
Yes, sir.
I got thoughts of you, man. I got you. You are not alone in this thing. You are on my mind. And check this out, y'all. If we're on God's mind, man, that's a major thought in and of itself.
Yeah.
For God to have us on his mind means that we are not alone in this thing. We're not alone with this COVID virus, COVID-19, coronavirus. We're not alone with money issues. We're not alone with the loss of a job. We're not alone with anything. He says, you're on my mind, meaning that I got you covered. And I'm going to take care of you in this situation. Listen, I want y'all to say good night to us, Pastor Sharp and Pastor Tate. Man, look, thank y'all for being a part tonight. Just say something to the people as we get ready to go off. And then, Pastor Sharp, I want you to close us out with prayer.
Listen, I want to say thank you, Pastor Sanders, for putting this even on our minds and in our spirits, because this is something that we need to keep focus on. And I thank Pastor Sharp for enlightening us tonight, as I knew he would. That's why I just kept my mouth closed, because I wanted to hear what he had to say. But I've been blessed tonight tremendously. And Vernon, incredible. I enjoyed you, Monica. Y'all were incredible, I'm telling you, tonight. Thank you, Pastor Sanders. Listen, y'all, we got to stick with it. We got to stick with it because another thing, and I know we're going to go, that we have to look at this now, coming on live and coming on Facebook Live, YouTube, that this might become the new norm, because we don't know when this thing is going to turn around and what to say. If people get so comfortable, they might say, you know what, y'all can have it. I enjoy watching it at home in my pajamas. You know what I'm saying? So we have to pray. So we have to be very prayerful. So we love y'all. Thank you all so much for supporting this live tonight. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you, Pastor Sanders. I love you, man.
Love you, man.
I appreciate you. Pastor Sharp.
Pastor Sharp, are you there? Well, look, thank y'all tonight for tuning in, for being a part of this with us. As I'm leaving tonight, I'm asking you to go to Pastor Dale Sanders on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Dale Sanders, and go to my website, Dale J. Sanders Ministries or DJSministries.com. You can download any song. You can listen to our music. Just go there and be blessed. Thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Next Friday night, we are going to be blessed. I will be here again with my friend, Bishop Samuel Raymond Blakes. He's going to be with me in the room on next week, along with some other millennials. And next week, we're going to be talking about millennials. Check this out. Millennials, originals or copycats. Blessings on y'all. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.
He gives me sunshine.